Okay, hey, what's up, guys? It's Kitten of Doom, and today I have a very special guest that's going to be helping me today with this Geb guide. And do you want to
Pleased
introduce
to make
yourself?
your acquaintance.
Hi, I'm Gab, also known as Hindu.
Okay, and what do you do for
So I'm a
Hi-Res?
caster at Hi-Res Studios, and I'm big involved in the esports scene. Basically, organizing everything that goes on the esports scene in terms of your casters and talking about your pro players and understanding what's going on in the games and trying to translate it to the audience. So
Yep, it's pretty awesome. And then as I've gotten to know Hindu better, I've learned that he is a support main, and one of his favorite guardians is Geb. So who better to come and help me with this guide than Hindu? So pretty excited. And
it's
then,
weird getting the invite, honestly, because I'm not known for my guides, but I do play a hell of a lot of Gab, so
hmm
I love him.
and I
He's my
think
favorite.
you'll know a couple of tips and tricks to tell people for sure, because you got, I think, 3 stars on him.
Yes, I didn't realize it had got that many without realizing it because it's kind of my go-to pick when I'm just chilling out and playing a little bit of Conquest
Sweet.
of any variety.
And then let's just like hop right into his abilities. So first of all of his abilities, what would you recommend leveling first and why?
Okay, so when it comes to leveling abilities, if we go to the laning area so I can show you real quick, it kind of comes down to what the team needs. In the early laning phase, maxing your 2 is really useful. Your Shockwave for clearing creeps in the lane. It's your safe clear, but it's also a knock up. Now, with leveling it, all you get by leveling this is just more raw damage. So if you wanted just pure wave push power, which sometimes is useful for Geb, and that's really dependent on how good your ADC is at pushing too, because like if you get a very good pusher, like an Izanami, you don't necessarily have to level your 2 first. You can look at putting more points into your 3. But at level 1, definitely start off with your 2
Mm-hmm.
for helping to clear out the wave. And when we talk about the 2 a little bit, which we'll get to after leveling, I guess, is I'd focus on leveling the 2 first, then your 3 for your shield, second of all. And then finally your ult. Well, obviously your ult, whenever it's available for a point in that, and then roll out last.
Yep.
So 2 or 3, but it's really dependent on whether you feel like you're going to need more shields or you're going to need more damage in the laning phase.
Yeah, that's how I generally would recommend leveling those abilities also. Mainly just because Shockwaves, I think it's pretty good as for peel and just to set up teammates. Just early game, I think he is not too great. I'd recommend having like a good hunter to help clear the wave that has good wave clear, or else you guys are gonna have a hard time.
Definitely. Now, he's not the greatest at wave clear, but one thing about the shockwave that a lot of people don't realize is that it's based off how close you are to the minions, is how much damage you do.
hmm And
Whereas
the
if you
further
get
away,
into
it does less,
exactly,
right?
so you want to get up close and personal to the minions, and like when it comes to clearing minion waves with Geb, realistically, if you can get the opportunity to try and stand side onto the creeps. Now, the reason you want to do this is because you'll hit them all with about the same sort of direction and about speed. So they should all take the same amount of damage, and you can see I'm quite close there, so I do a lot more.
Oh
I'm
yeah, I
obviously
haven't
level
even
20
thought about
now.
that. It's a good tip.
But side on means that they'll all get hit for the same amount. If you're up close and personal with the frontline melee minions, you will do some damage to the back archers, but you can actually really crush archers as Gab really well. If I show you this just with, like, obviously this is a rank 20 version now, but I can show a different version in a second. But if I just do these on my own here, you can see I can pretty much kill them on my own at this rank.
And the archers do way more damage anyway than
Exactly,
melees,
and that
so.
and the archers is where the push power comes from too. Funny enough, so also don't forget that when you use your 2 and you knock people up in lane, you're going to get aggro from the minions, which means your minions will naturally push as well. So that does always help you.
hmm And then would you ever recommend upgrading his 1 at level 1? His rollout ability?
Very, very rarely. I think situation is such a situational ability at level 1. It's not really worthwhile. Now the clear speed is pretty good. 100 base damage on this ability is pretty solid. But taking it at rank 1 just puts you a little bit more awkward most of the time because you can get cancelled by like body blocks by another god. So if they're in the minion wave like I am now and you try to roll through, I'd be able to just stop you doing any damage to them whatsoever. But also once that's on cooldown, you have no escape. You know, if you're using that as your clear, then you're going to be on the other side of the map and be stuck in a bit of a weird territory with no way of really escaping.
I think I've heard of the strategy of people kind of coming from the jungle and going around this way. get ranking this up and kind of going in, but that's kind of hard to drive a little bit.
And the main reason for it's hard to drive. Like if you can get really good at the steering about the one, it's really good. The problem is that they can hear you coming really clearly, and if they can avoid it or just block you as you enter in, you're not going to get any clear off. Now, the one is really good damage, probably too much damage to be honest, as you max this out to max rank. But the other thing about the one is the slow effect. When you actually hit someone with the just a normal
Go
rollout,
over here and you can see the slow effect. I'll change teams.
you'll get a slow. So when you hit someone with the one, it does a pretty good bit of damage there, but at the same time it's got a slowing effect. Now as you max this out, sometimes it's useful to just roll into someone at short range after a knock-up, just to keep them slowed after the knock-up ends. And as you put more points into the rollout, you'll see the slow duration increases. It's still 30% flat, and 30% is quite a lot. And for 2 seconds, it's pretty solid. So
yeah, and with the ADC kind of attacking them while they're slowed and knocked up, you can pretty much get some good damage on them or potential kills too.
definitely, I mean, especially with the two. The two is so unnoticed in terms of how much you can do. So you can get quite a lot of damage off with the two if you can use it right.
Third ability, the Stone Shield. I think everyone on the opposite team always hates this ability because of how good it is.
Yeah.
So basically, you just get a shield around yourself or any ally that you choose, and it goes up to 250.
Plus 20, so 650 top. Top end, like maxed out, the maximum shield you can get is 650 health that it will give to a teammate.
And then max duration is 5 seconds. That's pretty crazy. So
yeah, the duration definitely helps, and like this ability is great all around, but there's two different variations of when to use this, and that's where people really struggle. And it's really about your game knowledge of reading the game and the team fight very well, of whether you want to go for the shield option to cleanse, which will get them out of further damage, and actually out CC and break that, or you're doing it just to block the raw amount of damage they're about to take. Because sometimes making that call can be very tricky. Sometimes you think you want to cleanse them, but really you want to try and just block the damage they're going to hit you anyway, because otherwise they could be in a worse situation. Good example of that is like against an execute god like a Thanatos or an Achilles. Sometimes it's good to block that, that Thanatos scythe with a shield first of all, instead of letting them, waiting for a silence to come through instead, because the lower health pool they get, shields won't prevent executes.
Yep, and then that's a good counter to Geb too, is basically like all execute gods, because his shield will not save him from any of that. So
definitely. So sometimes just blocking the raw damage can be useful in team fights, and it's really about reading who's got what abilities up and trying to work out if they're going to go aggressive against your guys, and if they are, what CCs they've used, and then you're looking for the right time when they're trying to commit to your carry, and then flick up your shield when you need to cleanse them out of it, or give them more health.
Yep, and then basically just recommend being super careful with it too, because if you put it on another teammate or you do it too early, you could pretty much just screw over like your teammate and have them die or whichever. So I think there's definitely been a couple times where I accidentally like put it on myself and then my ADC dies. So
the big difference with Geb and the shield situation, the difference between the good Gebs and the bad ones are the ones how they use their shields.
Totally.
Because the other thing is, like, sometimes you can throw a shield on yourself, right? But then people aren't going to attack you when you've got the shield up. They're going to be like, well, that shield's there. If I can't burst through it and still get the kill,
they'll just disengage.
I might just wait for it to wear off. Yeah. So sometimes you just got to wait for the right moment. It's very similar to Kepriel in that sense.
No, totally. Basically, Geb can just cleanse and counter. He counters, I think, so many supports and so many ultimates with this shield if you can use it right, like Ares ultimate.
Oh, Ares is probably the trickiest one.
Because the thing with Ares is he can chain you, so you can't use your one. So it's almost like Geb and Ares kind of both counter each other and then have strengths against each other.
Yeah, there's a little bit of an advantage for Ares. So I guess an Ares matchup, what I advise is if you can catch the no escape. If you get hit by the no escape as Geb, sometimes to try to void blowing your ultimate, it's sometimes good to get pulled in because you can Cataclysm afterwards.
Yep.
You can use Cataclysm for your CC immune, which will get to the ultimate. But the other option is your rollout has CC immunity at the top end. And so if you can, while you're getting hit by the chain of the ultimate, hit your rollout, which can be tricky because he may have already changed you already, then you can get your CC immunity up and be able to avoid the pull by that as well.
Yeah, and then you don't have to like waste your shield, because you could try and be like shielding one of your teammates too to not get pulled by that. So
Yeah, sometimes there's definitely situations where you'll use the rollout to get CC immunity, and then cancel your CC immunity and throw the shield on the teammate that got pulled in to try and keep them top. And then hopefully you're out of combat, so then you can try and blink and initiate yourself. So
yeah, I think Blink is definitely the best relic for him.
definitely, he's really good in the engagement. Blink's really useful just for multiple reasons. Funny enough, not just for aggressive, but for defensive too. Like being able to blink and get shields on a teammate is really important. Just get yourself in range can really come in handy. So it's good. It's very useful defensively and offensively as a Geb player.
Then just going over his ult, he basically does magical damage to all enemy gods, and based on the percentage of their current health, he does up to 35% of their health.
Oh yeah, at max rank, yeah.
And it's pretty good, and then just stuns them. So you can blink into a whole team and stun them all, and your team just follows up after that, and you can win a team fight pretty well from doing that.
Agreed. Definitely one of the reasons to pick this definitely one of the reasons to level this ultimate is because not only does the amount of health you're going to take away from them going to go up, so you're going to do 35% of total health, and that's current health, by the way, not like, so if they're all full health, you're doing 35%, which means if you hit all 5 members of a team, you've actually done more damage than one of your carries might have done all game, if you can hit them all, because 35% of their total health is quite a huge chunk. But not only that, the CC duration, the stun duration, goes up to 2 seconds as you put points in this, and 2 seconds in the world of Smite is almost like
forever.
a laning phase. It's a really long time in a team fight.
Yep. And I think this is why Geb is probably one of the best late game guardians, just because all his shield health goes up based on max rank, and the Cataclysm. Basically, he can do tons of damage late game. He just suffers in early.
And that's the big key, is about the early phase. You just got to try and grind it out a little bit in the early game and just focus on keeping your carry alive and staying alive yourself. Like, you don't have to hunt for kills, even though realistically Geb's pretty good at boxing matches 1v1 against carries in the early game, just because he's just tanky. Like, he's not one of the tankiest gods in the game. There's a few other guardians that have better stats than him at a base level, but he just innately has a lot of tankiness to him with his shields and things too, so you can put out a lot of damage.
And then as for combos, what do you recommend?
Okay, so there's like a billion combos. So Tricky, do you want to go with basic combos first?
Yeah, let's just do basic and then we can go up from there.
So basic combo, like this is an easy one, which is just that 1-2. Don't make sure you don't have CC immunity. Hit them, smack them, right? It's not anything too special, but that hit from them will slow them enough to make sure that your shockwave is going to do max damage. Not only that, the other base combos which are really good is obviously the 4-2, which is pretty simple. But if you can time this right with how long your CC is, you can make sure you get absolute maximum CC duration. So 1-2 to make sure you can't break the CC. Remember, knockups are the strongest CC in the game, even if they're small ones, because they interrupt a lot of channeled abilities and things too, and really like just disorientate players quite a lot. But stuns are the second best after knockups, and the best news is Geb has both of those.
And he has that knockup on his one, which is a little harder, and you can also like save enemies by just pushing them away. So
yeah, learning to control Geb in his rollout is really key. It's quite a tricky task, but once you get the hang of it, you can really like maneuver through team fights well, and even get yourself out of a lot of tricky situations. Also remember, during your rollout, you can also be rooted, but because you'll get CC immunity eventually, and you'll break out of the root and be able to go away. So don't cancel your root early. Now, trickier combo is the 1-2 into... I missed that one there. That was a bad example. We'll try that again. But it's the 1-2 where you actually land the knockup, and if you hit them at the same time, you can hit them the 2 straight afterwards if you're fast enough. Sometimes it's easier than I'm making it seem, but I've definitely done it before. It's really good against walls at the edge of the map with a lot of this.
Oh yeah, like pushing them against a wall.
Yeah, but if you get them against the wall,
over here a little bit.
Yeah, do it against the wall, and I'll show you how I mean. Because once they hit a wall, you get knocked up for such a long period of time that you've got time to mess around.
Oh yeah.
So you just keep them traps in a corner. It's It's a little bit trickier. You can catch people in the air with the knock up though sometimes, and like prevent the knock up or disrupt them sometimes. So be aware of that for your own teammates too, because you can accidentally like throw people out of position by using your knock up because they'll jiggle and just go up and down instead of where they were supposed to be going to.
And in any of these combos, do you recommend using a shield on yourself, like especially after you ult and get all the aggro onto you?
Realistically, I kind of hold my shield until the worst case scenarios most of the time. As Geb, you shouldn't really be using your shield for yourself, outside of maybe cleansing a route when your rollout's down or something like that, or you realize you're about to take a real burst of damage, like you're hitting the fire giant at the same time. Maybe you blink ult into a fire giant pit. That's a situation where you might want to use a shield, but really it's about just juggling your own health to not have to use shields on yourself. Your shield should mainly be for other people, unless you end up in a 1v1 scenario or being chased by a team. That's when you really want to be using your shields then. Don't be looking to use your shield like straight off the bat, hold on to it, because the longer that shield's available, the more scared the enemy team is of committing, because you keep them at bay most of the time just by having that available.
Yeah, they're always just worried about, okay, who is the Geb gonna shield right now? So
and yeah, sometimes like you're trying to switch characters of who you're going to look after in a team fight. Sometimes your carry's pretty safe or he's playing well, so it doesn't need your shields as often, so maybe you protect your mage a little bit more. It's really about you trying to read the team fights in terms of who they're getting aggressive on. Are they trying to kill your mage all the time? Are they trying to kill your hunter all the time? Then maybe you should be protecting that one with your shields a little bit more. Or reading when they're going to engage and counter-engage at the same time with the blink.
And then I've heard a lot of different opinions about this, whether they think Geb is like a front line or a back line, back line just to like help the mage and hunter once they're getting aggroed on by like the warrior or the jungler,
Exactly.
So which do you think?
He's actually interchangeable, and Geb interchanges based off who he's with in the team. If you've got a lot of divers, you can join in the dive if you want to, but you could also leave the divers to keep diving and protect the backline a little bit more. You can play that sort of go-between. This is why Geb's so versatile in that sense. Like, you can play aggressive and be up in their face, but most of the time he's going to do very well on the initial initiation of a team fight, and then look to sit back and peel his carries and protect people. So maybe he'll be the one that blinks in, gets the ultimate off, and then looks to fall back afterwards and like look for the shields and teammates the whole time. And just make sure you disrupt the fights, and then you'll see a couple of low health people maybe to chase them down or something like that. But your duties in a team fight are really based off how the team's playing most of the time, and if the right windows come up.
Yeah, and you can even just use this to peel and save your carries too. So he's like insanely good at both. So I completely agree.
Yeah, some of the guardians are definitely just all in. Like Cabrakan, for example, is more focused on the all-in style of play, whereas Khepri and Geb can interchange quite a bit in terms of being aggressive or passive. Same for Sylvanas too.
So for the ult, do you kind of just recommend the ult 2 into the one after that as a good combo?
So I advise for the newer players of Geb and getting used to it is just get used to, if you don't have blink, don't be scared to roll into a team fight and cancel your rollout when you get to the position, because a lot of people may expect you to continue the rollout, but you can cancel it at any time, and that could just get you in range. And then if you get in range, you can just pop the ult straight away, which is on cooldown.
Oh, also canceling it especially when you're in the CC immune stage, so you don't like push them too far from your team, is like huge.
Exactly.
So
sometimes you can actually bait them into thinking you're going to hit them with the rollout, the CC immune, and then when you get towards them and you're going to go for it, just cancel it out, get right in front of them, drop the 2, drop the ult. There's definitely the best advice though is blink cat is like one of the best combos, and after the cat, look to reposition with a little bit of time with your 2 to make sure you're going to hit the most people possible, or the focal target. Now dream situation, you hit 3 or 4 members at a time, but realistically you're looking for the backline. If you can just get a mage or a carry to pop their beads, you're doing the right thing. Like, making sure those beads are burned, it makes it a lot easier for the rest of your team to do the hard work of getting the kill.
Gotcha. And then main roles, I would probably just recommend like support and solo. I've seen him in both, but it's mostly those two.
Generally just stick to support with him. Like solo lane, he's got a lot of ability there, and that's because you have to level him slightly different. Same with jungle, funny enough, is because people max his rollout a little bit more because of the base damage being so high of that ability. And his mobility through the jungle and lane can be really useful. But that's once you've got to the grips with Geb at a base level, it's probably best to just sit in the support role and learn how much damage you really do.
Yeah, and in solo, he's gonna have a hard time, especially against like a warrior that can clear way
Oh, yeah.
better than him. So
Yeah, his clear kind of gets online around, I'd say, like level 6 to 7. He's in a better spot if you max the 2 out. You can pretty much effectively clear the wave, but a 2-1 combo isn't too bad at clearing it at any stage of the game. Just be very careful about using your rollout for clearing waves, because if you get spotted, that means they can get aggressive towards you.
and then if you do use the one for the waves, would you recommend just starting out like walking all the way here and then rolling out towards your side of the map, kind of to be
Oh.
safer?
If you want to start with the 1, I would recommend coming from behind if possible, I'd say. Just because I don't see... You've got more chance of getting away with it by trying to wrap around the back. I feel like they're trying to just roll down the lane at them.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah,
you want to get used to your turning circles, because it gets trickier.
Totally. Go on to kind of like build recommendations and what you think works best with him.
Okay, well, one
starting
thing-
with like starter item and stuff like that, or
Sure. Well, one thing you're going to get with him as well is don't forget his passive. Like,
oh yeah,
the passive
sorry, we didn't
being-
even go over that.
It's a good passive to... It's a weird passive because it doesn't do much, but it does a ton. Like, it just reduces the amount of damage you take from crit damage, which already is really good in a double hunter composition. Like, if you get double hunters, the odds are, if the crit meta ever swings back around where they all start bringing that, Geb's always going to be a favored pick because he can take a lot more of that damage. But when it comes to builds, the start of the game, I'm definitely a little bit special in this regard because I really have a big thing with Ancient Blade starts. But if you don't go the Ancient Blade, this is the sort of build you'd look at going at the beginning of the game. What I'd advise doing is probably going Boots 1, along with Guardian's Blessing, and then 3 multis and 2 health potions. Now, the reason I'll say the 3 multis and 2 health is you don't need health as much because of your Guardian's Blessing, and your shield should be able to keep you pretty topped up. If you play pretty defensive and juggle your health bar pretty well, you'll be fine in lane with just 2 health potions. The 3 multis are there for the mana regeneration, just in case the early game gets a little bit wild, and you really need to like use your shield a little bit more often, you're scrapping a little bit more, you're punching around, you know, you're using a lot more of your abilities because it's a frantic fight there. Then the multi potions will help you just stay in lane a little bit longer because you've got mana. The worst thing about any Guardian is when you run out of mana, you are pretty much useless until you've based. And as a support, you want to try and keep your mana up. So I like the multi potions because they still stack with health potions, and so you can get the double tick effect out of those too. But at the same time, regenerate some mana at the same time.
Do you think Geb is pretty mana hungry early at all?
Realistically, his mana costs aren't too insane. I mean, 60 for his Shockwave at rank 1, but that scales up pretty well. So if you want to do more damage on Geb, you're almost doing 100 a Shockwave. Well, it's 80 mana cost a Shockwave. He's not too mana intensive, but it's only if you're using your abilities too much that you'll really run out of mana. But then again, I'm a very aggressive player most of the time as Geb because I just like to walk up and punch people in the face with him. So I do use more mana than most people probably, and don't conserve it as well as I should.
Yeah, I would say same because the shockwave's just too fun to
For
hit
sure.
on people. As for boots,
Yeah.
there's 3 things I think he can mainly go in is like Shoes of Focus, Reinforced, or Travelers. Which one do
Yeah.
you gravitate towards?
So I'm definitely a Shoes of Focus because I love the cooldown reduction is the big reason for
Yeah.
this. Cooldown's really important because having cooldown means your ults up more often and your shields up more often. So taking a couple of seconds off those where you can as a support is always going to be useful. So like just with Shoes of Focus, max rank you're talking 16 seconds on a stone shield, which isn't too bad. But if the rest of your build ends up getting any other cooldown, like another 10% somewhere here or there, it really helps in the long run. It's situational though, because sometimes I will get reinforced shoes, and that's based off if I'm against a lot of dot compositions, like I'm going to be dealing with Kukulkans or Anubises or Dargies, you know, the ones where that you're going to have some trouble with dots. Like this can just help you stay a little bit tankier and stay alive a little bit longer.
Yeah, and
It's more
even
about-
crowd control reduction too.
Yeah, it's more. This is more realistically for if you're getting focused a little bit in the early game, which can happen to Geb sometimes, but it comes at the cost of personal safety rather than team safety, which is the Shoes of Focus option.
Hmm.
And then the travel issues. Now, I used to like the travel issues because the MP5 is great, but everything's kind of got MP5 on it now. The extra movement speed's pretty good for Geb to get in range a little bit longer. But he doesn't necessarily need it as much as some others because of his rollout ability speeding him up anyway, as he uses that to get around the map quickly.
Yeah, I think Shoes of Focus would probably be the best thing that I would recommend too. As for going in, I feel like a lot of support builds can vary a
Yeah.
lot, but right now it seems like Gauntlet of Thebes is mainly what supports are kind of getting second.
Yeah, will still be in season 6. We'll see what happens in season 7, but I would advise getting Gauntlet of Thebes every single time. Especially if you're new to Geb, this is giving you just raw health, and health is always going to be useful for you, alongside health regeneration, which means as long as you can manage your mana, in terms of you getting Guardian's Blessing procs to give you some mana back off creeps and things, there's situations where you never really need to go back to bed if you can play Geb well. So
Mhm.
back to base, back to bed. You do play Geb well, but also you're getting these stacks the whole time with the magical and physical procs. And then when you get that, this aura with 10 physical protection and magical protection helps out your whole team to get them a little bit tankier. But not only that, it makes you tankier because it gives you those protections too.
Yep. And then probably just getting a second because of how long it takes to get those assists for the minion stacks too.
Yeah, just get it there is pretty good. If you can get it as early on as possible, mainly just the raw health you get from this is very worthwhile.
What do you think's best, like third place or third item
So
for him?
realistically, this is very much open for debate, and this is because it's really going to be based off what the enemy team is consisting of and how well your team's doing.
Mhm.
There's a lot more flexibility in Geb's build at this moment in time in terms of where he goes from this direction. I personally am a big fan of Relic Dagger. Reason being in this situation is just because it gives me more raw health, but not only that, it reduces the cooldowns a little bit more. Cooldown reduction and also cooldown reduction of my passive, of my relics, means that I can blink a little bit more often, have that up a bit more often, as well as have more shields with the Shoes of Focus to throw at my team. So I'm at 20% CDR with this build already, and I'm only
Yep.
halfway done.
Yeah, Relic Dagger, I think it's kind of been like a sleeper pick all season and then it's like came back up. It's super good. And even like junglers are picking that up just because it's such a good item right now.
Now, as a new player as well, I'd advise that the next two what I've put down on here, you don't have to go in this meta. But if they've got a lot of physical, don't be scared to go for Sovereignty. It's got good health and physical protection, but also helps shoot your teammates.
Hmm.
And same for Heartwood Amulet. This will give you a bit more MP5 to Heartwood Amulet too, and give it a little bit of protection to your teammates too. There's definitely other options though, and I'll just select a couple of those there to show you. He's got so many variations of where he can go here. So it really is how the game's really going for you and your team.
Do you
Which one would I
suggest Pride Win on him ever?
Pridwin can be useful on occasion. It's an interesting one because Geb doesn't really get focused as much as you think he will. After the initial initiation of a team fight, you will go aggressive with the blink initiation. And so when you get the Pridwin up, it allows you to do a bit more damage after it explodes, but let me just
Mhm.
I don't see it being that useful because you shouldn't really be staying in the fight on the front line until that explodes after the fight is my reasoning for it. 30 physical and magical protections is pretty solid. Obviously the effect is more for damage than anything else because you've got your shield. But as we talked about, your job in a team fight really is to initiate or defensively initiate onto the back line, burn the beads and fall back. You're not going to stay running at the enemies with those shields up to protect the damage. Even though you can do that, realistically, you should be falling back towards your back line to help protect them with shields.
Yeah.
But it is definitely an option in there. Alongside what I picked up there was the Oni Hunter's Garb, which gives you 20% crowd control reduction. This is another MP5 option, as well as enough personal magical protection. But it's a little bit better than that because of the passive and the fact that you will be around a lot of gods most of the time.
Yep, especially
means
blinking into everybody.
Exactly. So those extra protections really come in handy. And then the other one, of course, Mantle of Discord. Amazing amount of protection.
Why do you think Mantle's good on him?
So Mantle of Discord's really useful in every situation, just because of the fact that it gives you 1 second of CC immunity, which can break anything or the cleanse yourself if you have to use your shields elsewhere. But not only that, if people are on you, which is generally at this point, if your mantle's being used, it means your team's probably fallen or you're having to die and sacrifice yourself. and being the last man to leave the fight. So having that mantle proc can really just stun the targets around you, give you a chance to escape, or just buy more time for your team to escape as it's taking them longer for them to kill you. So it can come in handy there. Not only that, 60 physical and magical protections on this item is insane. And again, more cooldown reduction, which means you can spam your abilities a little bit more often.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Mantle's expensive, but I think it's totally worth it just for that stun when you're low and the cooldown and protections. Definitely one of the best items, I think, late game.
The big thing with any Guardian is all about balancing the amount of health you've got with the amount of protections you got too. You don't want to overinvest in just protections and have no raw health, but you also don't want to invest in health and have no raw protections because things like chins will destroy you and Soul Reaver. So having a bit of a mixture of both really makes you useful for the whole game against a lot of situations and harder to kill.
Mm-hmm.
And then last one on the list to really mention is Magi's Cloak. Now, you don't always need it as Geb because of the fact that you've got your shields anyway, but you're also a tank. But now and again, these will really help you out against low CC compositions or against the likes of a Kumbhakarna or even a Dodgy who's using Powwows a lot. Like Kumbhakarna is really good at CC chaining you of Yawns and things like that, so being able to just break one of those can be useful sometimes. It's not always going to help you, but just preventing one of those CCs for a second means that if they blink on your carry, you can at least get your shield off on the carry to help them out because you've got a bubble for yourself. Not only that, it's good against, like I said, Dodgy for the Powwows and things like that, and Ares too. So sometimes it can be pretty useful to pick one of these up.
Yeah, and having them like just get rid of that bubble is pretty huge, and it's just hard CC that gets rid of it. So
yeah, sometimes it's not worth getting one when you realize they've got a hell of a lot of CC or like silences. Like Nox Trouble Puddles always cause problems because you're stepping one of those, it's just gone anyway. But against low CC teams, it can just give you even more of a chance of staying in the fight a little bit longer and making sure you can't be stopped with what you're trying to do.
And then for countering healers, do you recommend that Geb picks up Pestilence, or do you think that's something that someone else should pick up?
Geb can go Pestilence. I think Contagion's also an option for him. Like, you don't have to go Pestilence these days. Contagion's the same sort of thing. Yep. So just see how the team's doing. If they've got more physicals, then you can go for some anti-heal there. I wouldn't really necessarily recommend Divine Ruin on him, so you're probably looking in that direction. Same with Toxic Blade. He really only has the options of Pestilence and Contagion to pick from. And obviously you can only pick one of those because they don't stack.
Yep. I totally forgot about Contagion. That's a good point.
Yeah, in terms of builds, I think I'd recommend those sort of things. Honestly, this build I've got here is pretty much a decent one for the most part. I'm definitely someone that changes it around based off the compositions I'm against. If there's a lot of physical, I might go Witch Blades as well instead of Relic Daggers at some points. Maybe if I've got lots of hunters on my team, I'll look at getting a Kasari for magical defense instead, but also be able to buff my team with their attack speed steroids too. Stone of Binding is another option if you're looking to help out with penetration against tankier lineups. That can come in handy too to help your teammate out. So it really is, in the support world right now, it's a lot about building against your composition and to complement what your composition is trying to do.
Yeah, exactly. And then as for other relics, I think pretty much Blink and Show are his staples, but he could also do like Sprint as well. Do you ever recommend like Horrific, or do you think he just is better off with like a Shell or a Sprint?
So realistically, I think Blink is always guaranteed to be in Geb somewhere. I don't think you have to take it at rank 1 when you first get your first relic. You don't have to go Blink there. If you're starting out with Geb, I'd advise actually just going Shell to begin with.
Same.
And then looking at using Blink at level 12. But once you get really good and used to it, you can start to flex into a bit more Blink. Most of the relics that are available right now are pretty useful for Geb in different situations. Forgo getting beads just so you can get used to the fact of what your situations are going to be in, but I would never say beads are absolutely terrible on Geb against really CC heavy teams. It can help them out a little bit in the early game. But I would recommend Shell as a standard alongside Blink. Sprint can be very useful, Heavenly Agility. Same with Crippling Emblem. I think that, once again, your secondary relic outside of Blink is very situational. Because I'm someone that's happy to go with Meditation sometimes, especially against teams that have Executes on. Because of the fact that the one thing that I can't do is my shield won't keep them alive through an execute. But what I can do is I can potentially meditate them and then give them a shield after that to keep them alive.
Oh,
So
yeah.
the meditation blocks the execute, and then the shield's there to allow my carry to survive a bit longer.
And a lot of people are thinking med is just like awful, but I've seen so many situations where med has actually saved, so many lives, especially
Yep.
in Conquest when people are ganking and just when they don't expect it because no one ever buys it anymore.
Definitely, and the one thing about meditation, it was meta a few seasons ago, but at the time it's still really strong in late game. It scales now is where the issue is with meditation, and a lot of people don't realize that. So like the later the game goes, the more it's going to actually heal you for as you level up.
Hmm.
So it definitely does get a little bit better, but it's definitely good against executes and allowing you to stay in the fight a little bit longer. It's not something I pick all the time, but against the likes of a Thanatos or an Ao Kuang, it can really turn the tide of a battle when you know they're about to ult in. Because you play Geb, you're always watching what they're doing, and you know your shield's not going to save them, but a quick meditation could just change a fight straight away.
Yep, and that's kind of countering your counter. That's
Yep.
a good way to do that too. So
Horrific's really useful for just slowing down enemies and keeping them trapped a little bit longer and reducing attack speed. You can use Sundering Spear for a little bit of a combo because you've got a pretty good setup for your Sundering Spear to connect with anyway. So you can cause some problems there. So look into it, but that's more advanced techniques. At a base level, definitely start off with Shell and then get Blink as your secondary. And then you can experiment a little bit with different relics that you rank 1 instead of Shell. But Shell's always a really good safe go-to.
yeah, I think that's a good staple for him. What god comes to mind that, just instantly that you think, oh, this god is like a straight counter to Geb?
Here's the thing, I don't think there's actually a full-on hard counter to Geb in the game. There's gods that are good against him, but I think if you're good with him, you could just make it work is my issue. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, who do you think is the hardest one? I was thinking about it.
Well, the gods that kind of come to my mind are obviously like the execute gods like Thana, Kwang, and Achilles, because him getting down to 30%, it kind of can still be a lot, but like, he can just still be executed. Nemesis ult, just stealing that big
That's
portion
true.
of the health and the protections, and she can, the whole team can just wail on him after that. Another interesting thing is like magical ADCs. Since his passive only protects him from crit, it doesn't seem like, magical ADCs fall into that as much.
No,
Except
I agree.
Alaron, right?
Yeah, I think some of the magical ADCs definitely give a lot of issues for Geb. Kronos can be someone that you can kind of dance around a little bit because his stun you can kind of prevent or at least block some of the damage with your shield afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
He definitely struggles against silences, so Nox is really good. And Guardian-wise, if you just want to talk about Guardians real quick, I think Jin 10 has a very good matchup against him just because he can jump around quite a lot and uses CC immunity effectively. And because the way Jin 10 plays, he can cause a lot of problems for your team where you can't necessarily shield the right person in his ultimate, but also get picked up in the ultimate himself and get thrown around a little bit. Big ones though from the support role, Kumbhakana is fantastic at just shutting him down and keeping him isolated and unable to do much because the way he has that big old yawn and the groggy strike to get you pinned. Ares is very useful because the chains prevent you from moving, and then also he's got Searing Flesh to prevent knockups.
Mm-hmm.
And then his ultimate can also take away your ultimate or force you to ult defensively. So I would say Ares is good. Darji, another good god against Geb. Just mainly because of the Paolo more than anything else, I've been able to pull him out of position and get him away from his team a little bit more so.
Yeah,
but
definitely
also,
if she like hits him when he doesn't have his shield up, then he can't do anything.
oh, definitely. I mean, once his shield's been used, you just kind of a sitting duck. It becomes almost like a chess match when you're playing against Dargis in games as Geb, because you're trying to hold onto your shield to make sure it's available for the Palau to save your carry, and especially if they've not got beads available. But then that means if you get hit in doing that, you're going to go for a wild ride.
Yeah, especially because you're not ever rarely gonna have beads, so.
No, it's not often you're going to go with those, that's for sure. Yeah, this out of all the gods, you can pretty much play against any god in Smite, though, as Geb. There's nothing that really screams to me that there's just no way of playing against it. Osiris actually is a pretty good god against Geb because once he gets a hold of you, there's no real way for you to get away unless you can really get your rollout channeled before the tether stuns you.
Yep.
And most of the time you're going to struggle there because the infinite CC chain of slows that will really prevent you from getting away from that. So Osiris can lock you down pretty well. I guess your Moja would probably come into this now, that the fact that she's got the new ability of her Mending Waters, her second ability removes shields. So this could
Didn't even think of
be
that.
a little bit disruptive towards him in the long run. In the Guardian role as well, the last one is Ganesh, and I think Ganesh is just something that a lot of people sleep on. His abilities are really good at keeping Geb in a really awkward position most of the time. Obviously, the Dharmic Pillars and the Silence combinations can really shut him down.
Yeah, it can just like shut off his rollout and silence him from getting away pretty good too.
Yeah, you just don't want to don't allow Ganesh to get too close to a Geb. If you're the Geb player, you want to kind of keep your distance there.
I think Geb can be good into pretty much, every god just if you play good enough. But as for like wombo combos, I think gods that come to mind are kind of like any god with a big circle AoE.
Yep.
And definitely a Willix, because she can just, ult people off of Geb's knockups. And Kukulkan, just big mage AoE. When you get that 2-second stun, you can just set that up. And just a bunch of gods like Cupid, Artemis,
Yeah, Cupid, Artemis, Kukulkan, Poseidon, Agni. Any of the big mages with the big AoEs are going to be very useful here. And sometimes, like, if you can really trust your teammates, you can do pretty well with, like, Kukulkan ults and things like that too. But mainly you're looking for the tornadoes and the whirlpools of the world to keep people trapped inside. Like you said, Cupid ult is really good with that combo too. Geb is underpowered, though, so please don't ask for nerfs on him. He's just a rock that likes to keep people alive. People should get frustrated about him. If you're like me and you like frustrating other people because you prevent them from getting kills, that's why I enjoy playing Geb. And then not only that, nobody expects to die to a Geb 1v1, but you can make that happen when you get really good with him.
Oh, totally. I think he was actually my first Diamond Guardian. I think he's super fun to play. People think he's boring, but once you get into him and figure out how often you just save your teammates and set up so many great team fights, you're gonna have a blast with him.
I'll be real, Geb was also a god when I first started Smite that I hated. I thought he was really boring too. Him and Kukulkan were the two gods that I thought were the most boring, and they are the two gods with the most stars I have on them now. So,
wow.
it's a little bit crazy of a situation, but yeah, Geb's fantastic. He has a lot of fun plays. You can play him aggressive, defensive, whatever mood catches you, but most of the time it's just based off your team. He'll fit in any composition almost. Just realize that sometimes if you're with a carry, you may not get lane pressure, so expect to get invaded and just accept that, especially if your carry doesn't realize you're playing Geb and doesn't play to the advantages of the Geb in the early game.
That was awesome. Thank you so much for
No
helping me
problem.
do that. That was so much fun. Keep an eye out for Hindu in Season 7. He's an amazing caster and super fun to talk to. If you ever see him at HRX, feel free to bug him a little bit. But
Oh, on that note, are you running for Olympian again?
yeah, so I'm doing the 2021, and then this year I'm going for non-conquest because they have you either go for whichever, just to like mix it up a little bit.
Well, vote for Kitana Doom to be part of the Olympians again next year. She did good work this year. Let her do it again. Official Hindu signing off, agreeing to it. Yeah.
Loving it.
My seal of approval. There you go.
Okay, awesome. Thanks so much, Hindu.
No, don't worry about it.
And that is going to wrap up this video, guys. I really hope you enjoyed having Hindu on here as like a special guest. Had a ton of fun. But other than that, I will see you guys in the next video.